The basketball bounced hard against the gymnasium floor as 12-year-old Amara ran down the court. Sweat dripped from her forehead and her heart pounded with excitement. She loved basketball, but honestly, it was just something fun to do after school. Her real passion was sitting at home in her living room, waiting for her on the old piano bench. "Amara, heads up," her teammate shouted. She turned just in time to catch the ball. Two defenders rushed toward her. She pivoted, lost her balance, and felt herself falling. Her left hand shot out to break the fall, and then she heard it. A sharp crack that made her stomach drop. The pain came next, hot and terrible, shooting up her arm like lightning. The gym went silent except for the sound of her own breathing, fast and scared. Coach Rivera's face appeared above her, concerned and kind. "Don't move, sweetheart. Just breathe." Someone call the nurse. 3 hours later, Amara sat in the emergency room with a bright blue cast covering her left arm from her knuckles almost to her elbow. Her mom squeezed her good hand while the doctor explained she'd fractured 2 bones in her wrist. 6 to 8 weeks in the cast. No piano, no sports. Just healing. The tears didn't come in the hospital. They came that night when Amara looked at the calendar hanging in her bedroom. 3 weeks. She had exactly 3 weeks until the spring recital at Riverside Middle School, the most important performance of the year, the one she'd been preparing for since September. She'd practiced Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major for months. Every day after homework, sometimes for 2 hours straight. Her fingers knew every note, every delicate phrase, every moment where the music swelled like a wave. And now, with this stupid cast, all of that was gone. Her grandmother found her crying into her pillow around 9 o'clock. Grandma Rose was staying with them for the month, and she understood music in a way that felt almost magical. She'd taught piano at the community college for 30 years before retiring. "Baby girl," Grandma Rose said softly, sitting on the edge of the bed. "I know it hurts. And I'm not talking about your arm." Amara nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. "But you remember what I always tell you about music? It's not in our hands," Amara whispered. "It's in our hearts." "That's right. Your heart isn't broken. Just your wrist. And that'll heal." The next morning, Amara walked into Riverside Middle School feeling like everyone was staring at her cast. Maybe they were. Maybe they weren't. Everything felt weird and wrong. She made it through English and math without anyone saying much. But then came advanced music class and her stomach twisted into knots. Mrs. Whitmore stood at the front of the classroom like she always did, straight-backed and serious. She'd been teaching at Riverside for 15 years, and everybody knew she ran the music program like a military operation. Perfect posture, perfect pitch, perfect everything. "Good morning, class. As you know, the spring recital is 3 weeks away. We have a full program, and I expect excellence from each of you." Amara slid into her usual seat near the back, trying to make herself invisible. Her best friend Sophie sat beside her and gave her a sympathetic look. Mrs. Whitmore's eyes scanned the room and landed on Amara. Something flickered across her face. Not concern, exactly. Something else. "Amara, I see you've had an accident." The whole class turned to look. 24 pairs of eyes locked onto her cast. "Yes, ma'am. I broke my wrist at basketball practice." "How unfortunate." Mrs. Whitmore's voice was flat, almost cold. "And you were scheduled to perform the Chopin Nocturne, correct?" "Yes, ma'am. But I was hoping maybe I could—" "I'm afraid that won't be possible." Mrs. Whitmore cut her off with a wave of her hand. "Classical piano requires both hands. Obviously, you'll need to withdraw from the recital." The words hung in the air like smoke. Amara felt her chest tighten. "But Mrs. Whitmore, maybe I could find a different piece. Something I could play with one hand?" A few students shifted in their seats. Sophie reached over and squeezed Amara's good hand under the desk. Mrs. Whitmore's expression hardened. "Amara, I understand you're disappointed. But the recital showcases serious musicians performing serious repertoire. This isn't a talent show where everyone gets a participation trophy. We have standards to maintain." Something in the way she said it made Amara's skin prickle. The emphasis on certain words felt pointed. "Like tiny needles, perhaps," Mrs. Whitmore continued, walking slowly down the aisle between desks. "This is an opportunity for you to explore other interests. Not everyone is meant to pursue classical music at this level. Some students have natural limitations that become apparent over time." Natural limitations. The words echoed in Amara's head. What did that even mean? Her wrist would heal. The cast would come off. This wasn't permanent. "I just thought maybe—" Amara tried again. "That's enough." Mrs. Whitmore's voice sharpened. "I've made my decision. You're excused from the recital." Perhaps you'd be more comfortable focusing on activities that are better suited to your situation. The way she said, "your situation," made several students glance at each other uncomfortably. Tyler, who sat near the window, frowned. Kennedy, usually quiet, looked down at her desk. Even the kids who barely paid attention seemed to sense something off about the whole exchange. Sophie leaned close and whispered, "That's so unfair." But Amara couldn't respond. She felt frozen, a mix of embarrassment and anger burning in her throat. Mrs. Whitmore had never been particularly warm to her, but this felt different, meaner, more personal. The rest of class dragged on forever. Mrs. Whitmore talked about breathing techniques and stage presence, but Amara heard none of it. She stared at her cast, at the signatures her friends had already started adding during lunch. Tyler had drawn a basketball. Kennedy wrote, "Get well soon," with a heart. When the bell finally rang, Amara grabbed her backpack with her good hand and headed for the door. "Hey, wait up." Sophie caught up with her in the hallway. "That was really messed up what Mrs. Whitmore said." "Yeah." Amara didn't trust herself to say more. "You're not actually going to quit, are you? You're the best pianist in the whole school. Everyone knows it. What am I supposed to do, Sophie? Play with my toes?" Sophie laughed, but it was a sad laugh. "I don't know, but there's got to be something. This is so unfair." That afternoon, Amara sat in her living room staring at their old upright piano. Her mom had bought it at a yard sale when Amara was 6. The bench was worn and some of the keys stuck a little, but it was hers. She'd spent thousands of hours on that bench, learning scales and arpeggios, struggling through difficult passages, and eventually making real music. She lifted the fallboard with her good hand and pressed middle C with her right index finger. The note rang out clear and true. Then she tried a simple melody, just her right hand playing the first few measures of "Mary Had a Little Lamb." It sounded lonely without the left hand adding harmony. But it was still music. Grandma Rose appeared in the doorway, holding 2 mugs of hot chocolate, she said, settling into the armchair nearby. "When I was teaching at the college, I had a student who lost 3 fingers on his left hand in a car accident. Terrible thing. Everyone thought his piano career was over." Amara's right hand paused on the keys. "But that young man researched every piece ever written for piano with limited hands. He found composers who'd written specifically for one hand. He adapted other pieces. He worked harder than any student I ever taught. And you know what? He ended up performing at Carnegie Hall." "Really? Really? Where there's a will, baby girl, there's always a way." Grandma Rose smiled. "The question is, how bad do you want it?" Amara looked down at her cast, then back at the piano keys gleaming in the afternoon light. "Pretty bad," she whispered. "Then I guess we'd better get to work." That evening, Amara sat cross-legged on her bedroom floor with her laptop balanced on her knees. Her grandmother had planted a seed of hope, and now she couldn't stop thinking about it. Music written for one hand. It sounded impossible, but Grandma Rose wouldn't lie to her. She typed into the search bar with her good hand. Piano music, one hand. The results made her eyes widen. Pages and pages of compositions. Apparently there was a whole world of one-handed piano pieces she'd never known existed. A composer named Paul Wittgenstein lost his right arm in World War I and commissioned dozens of pieces for the left hand only. Maurice Ravel wrote a famous concerto for him. Scriabin composed preludes and nocturnes for single hands. Amara clicked on a video of someone playing Scriabin's Prelude and Nocturne for the Left Hand, Opus 9. But wait, that wouldn't work. Her left hand was the one in the cast. She kept searching. Piano music, right hand only. Fewer results this time, but they existed. Then she found it. A piece by Alexander Scriabin, actually written for the right hand. The music was hauntingly beautiful, challenging but not impossible. It was around 3 minutes long, perfect for a recital. Her heart started racing. This could actually work. The next morning at school, Amara could barely focus on her classes. During lunch, she found Sophie sitting at their usual table near the windows. "I'm going to do it," Amara announced, dropping her lunch tray down. "Do what?" "Learn a one-handed piece. Perform at the recital anyway." Sophie's face lit up. "Seriously? That's amazing. What did Mrs. Whitmore say?" "I haven't told her yet. I want to learn it first. Prove I can do it." Smart. She'd probably just shut you down again. Sophie bit into her apple thoughtfully. You know she's not going to make this easy, right? I know. And Sophie was right. Over the next few days, Mrs. Whitmore seemed to go out of her way to make Amara feel unwelcome in music class. While other students practiced their recital pieces on the classroom's electric keyboards, Mrs. Whitmore assigned Amara busy work. Amara, these music stands need organizing. And after that, the piano keys could use a good cleaning. But Mrs. Whitmore, I could still practice, just with one hand. The other students need to concentrate. You'll distract them. Please do as I asked. So, while Kennedy practiced her flute solo and Tyler worked through his guitar piece, Amara wiped down piano keys and alphabetized sheet music. She felt invisible. Worse than invisible. She felt deliberately ignored. But Mrs. Whitmore's attitude only made Amara more determined. Every night after dinner, she practiced. Her bedroom door closed, headphones on, she worked through the scribe and piece measure by measure. The first few days were frustrating. Her right hand had always been her stronger hand, but it had never worked completely alone before. Without her left hand providing rhythm and harmony, everything felt off balance. You're tensing up, Grandma Rose observed one evening, standing in the doorway. Your shoulders practically up by your ear. Amara hadn't even noticed. She lowered her shoulder and shook out her arm. It's harder than I thought it would be. Good music always is. But you're thinking too much. Feel it instead. Grandma Rose sat beside her on the bench and played a simple melody with her right hand. It sounded effortless, like water flowing over stones. Your right hand has to do the work of two now. It carries the melody and suggests the harmony. Listen to the space between the notes. That's where the magic lives. Amara tried again. This time focusing on the feeling rather than just hitting the right keys. Something shifted. The music still wasn't perfect, but it started to sound less mechanical and more alive. By the end of the first week, she could play through the entire piece, though slowly and with mistakes. By the middle of the second week, her fingers began to remember the patterns without her having to think so hard about each note. She practiced during lunch periods too. The school auditorium was usually empty between noon and 1 o'clock, and the old stage piano was better than the classroom keyboards. Amara would slip in through the side door, her footsteps echoing in the huge empty space, and practice while eating her sandwich. On Thursday, Sophie showed up with her lunch bag. Room for one more? You don't have to babysit me, Amara said, but she was smiling. I'm not babysitting, I'm supporting. There's a difference. Sophie settled into one of the auditorium seats. Plus, I like hearing you play. You're getting really good at this. You think so? Are you kidding? It's beautiful. Sad, but beautiful. Two other kids from music class started joining them too. Tyler, who played guitar, and Kennedy, the flute player. They'd bring their lunches and sit in the front row while Amara practiced. Sometimes they'd clap when she finished a run-through. Sometimes they'd just listen quietly. Mrs. Whitmore's being really unfair to you, Kennedy said one day. Everybody in class thinks so. Then why doesn't anybody say anything? The words came out sharper than Amara intended. Kennedy looked down at her sandwich. I don't know. She's kind of scary, and she's been here forever. Who's going to believe us over her? Tyler nodded. My older brother had her 5 years ago. He said she played favorites all the time. If she liked you, you got solos and special opportunities. If she didn't, he shrugged. You got ignored. What made her like or not like someone? Amara asked, though part of her already knew the answer. Tyler and Kennedy exchanged uncomfortable glances. It's not just you, Sophie said quietly. Remember Deshaun? He was an amazing trumpet player, and she barely gave him any solos. And Jasmine, who graduated last year. She said Mrs. Whitmore told her she should focus on gospel music instead of classical. The words hung in the air. Nobody wanted to say it directly, but they were all thinking it. Mrs. Whitmore had a pattern, and Amara wasn't the first student to notice. Back in music class, things got worse. Mrs. Whitmore stopped even pretending to include Amara in activities. While she coached other students on their breathing, their posture, their emotional interpretation, Amara sat in the back doing worksheets about music theory she'd already mastered years ago. One afternoon, Mrs. Whitmore announced that all recital participants would do a dress rehearsal the following week. This is mandatory for everyone performing. You'll each play your piece on the auditorium stage so you can get comfortable with the space and the acoustics. Amara raised her good hand. Mrs. Whitmore? Yes, Amara. Since I'm not in the recital, should I still come to the dress rehearsal? That won't be necessary. You can report to the library for study hall. Some kids shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Sophie looked like she wanted to say something but didn't. That night, Amara practiced with an intensity that surprised even herself. Her right hand flew across the keys, working through the difficult passages again and again. The cast on her left arm felt heavy, a constant reminder of everything that had gone wrong. But it also felt like fuel. Every dismissive comment from Mrs. Whitmore, every time she was excluded, every uncomfortable silence from classmates who knew things weren't right but didn't know how to help. All of it poured into her playing. "Baby girl, it's almost 10 o'clock, her mom called from downstairs. You need to rest. 5 more minutes, but 5 minutes turned into 10, then 15. She was so close to getting the hardest section right, the part where the melody jumped up 2 octaves while maintaining a running rhythm underneath. Her fingers stumbled, then tried again. Stumbled. Tried again. Amara. Her mom's voice was firmer now. Bed. Now. Reluctantly, she closed the fallboard and trudged upstairs. But even in bed, her fingers moved through the patterns under her blanket, right hand tracing invisible keys on her mattress. She could hear the music in her head, every note exactly where it should be. Friday morning, she overheard something that made her stomach drop. Mrs. Whitmore was talking to Mr. Davis, the principal, outside the music room. Amara wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but she'd arrived early and they didn't see her around the corner. "I'm concerned about Amara Johnson," Mrs. Whitmore was saying. "She seems to be having trouble accepting that she can't participate in the recital. I think she's becoming a bit obsessive about it." "Obsessive how?" Mr. Davis sounded concerned. "She keeps bringing up alternative pieces, one-handed music. I've tried to be gentle, but I think someone needs to have a frank conversation with her about realistic expectations. It's not healthy for her to fixate on something that simply isn't possible." Amara's face burned. She pressed herself against the wall, hoping they wouldn't see her. "I appreciate you looking out for the students' well-being," Mr. Davis said. "I'll keep an eye on the situation." Their footsteps faded down the hallway. Amara stood there for a long moment, her heart pounding. Mrs. Whitmore was making her sound like she had a problem, like she was being unreasonable. And Mr. Davis believed her. At lunch, she told Sophie, Tyler, and Kennedy what she'd heard. "That's ridiculous," Tyler said, his voice rising. "You're not being obsessive. You're being dedicated. There's a huge difference." "Yeah, but who's going to believe that? Mrs. Whitmore's been here forever. I'm just a kid with a broken wrist who can't let go." Kennedy chewed her lip thoughtfully. "What if you're not the only one who talks to Mr. Davis? What if we all tell him what we've seen?" "Would you really do that?" "Of course. This isn't right, and we all know it." Sophie nodded firmly. "We're in this with you. Whatever you need." Amara felt something warm spread through her chest. Maybe she wasn't as alone as she thought. Maybe having people who believed in you was just as important as believing in yourself. That weekend, she practiced for 6 hours on Saturday and 5 on Sunday. Grandma Rose made her take breaks to rest her hand and stretch. But by Sunday evening, Amara could play through the entire piece without major mistakes. It wasn't perfect yet, but it was close. It was really, really close. She recorded herself on her phone and listened back. The music was there, all of it. The beauty, the emotion, the technical skill. In 2 weeks, she'd taught herself a piece that would have taken months under normal circumstances. Monday morning, Amara walked into school with a new sense of purpose. She had 11 days until the recital. 11 days to make this perfect. 11 days to prove that she belonged on that stage. Monday after school, Amara stood outside the music room door for a full minute before knocking. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She'd rehearsed what she wanted to say at least 20 times, but now all those carefully chosen words felt jumbled in her head. Just breathe. You can do this. She knocked. Come in. Mrs. Whitmore's voice called from inside. The music room smelled like old wood and sheet music. Mrs. Whitmore sat at her desk, grading papers with a red pen. She didn't look up immediately. Mrs. Whitmore? Can I talk to you for a minute? The teacher set down her pen and finally looked at Amara. Her expression was neutral, almost bored. What is it, Amara? I have a lot of work to finish. It's about the recital. I've been practicing and I found a piece I can play with one hand. It's by Scriabin, and it's written specifically for the right hand. I know I can do it if you just give me a chance to audition. Mrs. Whitmore sighed, the kind of sigh adults make when they think you're being difficult. Amara, we've discussed this already. The program is finalized. All the spots are filled. There's simply no room to add another performer at this late stage. But you could make room. It's just 3 minutes. Please, Mrs. Whitmore, I've worked so hard on this. I'm sure you have. Mrs. Whitmore's tone suggested she didn't believe it. But the recital isn't about effort. It's about showcasing excellence. It's about demonstrating the highest level of musical achievement our school has to offer. The words hit Amara like tiny cuts. Are you saying I'm not excellent? I'm saying that performing with a physical limitation is not what our audience expects to see. They expect to see our finest talent performing challenging repertoire under optimal conditions. Amara felt heat rising in her face. So because I have a cast, I'm not fine talent anymore? That doesn't make sense. I'm still the same pianist I was before. Mrs. Whitmore stood up from her desk. She walked around it slowly, crossing her arms. You're being very stubborn about this, Amara. I've tried to be understanding, but you're not listening. Sometimes we have to accept our limitations and move on. This insistence on performing is becoming disruptive. Disruptive? How is wanting to play piano disruptive? Your attitude is affecting class morale. Other students have noticed your difficulty accepting this situation. I've had to speak with the principal about my concerns. Amara's stomach twisted. So that conversation with Mr. Davis hadn't just been casual. Mrs. Whitmore had gone out of her way to paint Amara as a problem. That's not fair. I haven't disrupted anything. I've done every assignment you've given me. I've organized music stands and cleaned piano keys and sat quietly in the back while everyone else practiced. I haven't complained once in class. And yet here you are in my classroom after school, arguing with me about a decision I've already made. Mrs. Whitmore's voice took on an edge. I think we're done with this conversation. I have work to do and you should focus on your other classes. Perhaps it's time to consider whether advanced music is the right fit for you next year. The threat hung in the air between them. Amara felt tears prickling behind her eyes, but she refused to cry. Not here, not in front of Mrs. Whitmore. I just want to play piano, Amara said quietly. That's all I've ever wanted. Then you'll have plenty of opportunities once your cast comes off. But this recital is not one of them. Now please go. I have papers to grade. Amara left the music room with her legs shaking. She made it to the bathroom before the tears came. Hot, angry tears that she wiped away with her good hand. Sophie found her there 10 minutes later. I heard you went to talk to her. How did it go? Amara just shook her head. That bad? Worse. She basically threatened to kick me out of advanced music next year if I don't drop this. Sophie's eyes widened. She can't do that, can she? I don't know, maybe. She's been here forever. Who's going to stop her? That evening at dinner, Amara barely touched her food. Her mom noticed immediately. Okay, what's wrong? And don't say nothing because I know that face. Amara told her parents everything. The confrontation with Mrs. Whitmore, the threat. The feeling that no matter what she did, she'd never be good enough in her teacher's eyes. Her dad set down his fork. This has gone far enough. That teacher has no right to treat you this way. Your father's right, her mom added. We need to talk to the principal. But what if that makes things worse? What if Mrs. Whitmore gets mad and really does kick me out of the program? Baby, you can't let fear of retaliation keep you silent when someone's treating you unfairly, her dad said. That's not how the world gets better. Grandma Rose, who'd been quiet until now, spoke up. I taught for 30 years and I saw teachers like this. They think they own their classrooms, that they can treat students however they want without consequences. But schools have policies against discrimination, against favoritism. against making students feel small. You really think this is discrimination? Amara asked quietly. Her grandmother reached across the table and squeezed her hand. I think it's worth asking some hard questions about why this teacher seems to have such low expectations for you specifically, why she's so quick to dismiss your abilities, why she assumes you can't handle challenges. The next morning, Amara's parents took time off work to meet with Principal Davis. They brought Amara with them. Sophie, Kennedy, and Tyler had written statements about what they'd witnessed in music class. Kennedy's was especially detailed, describing multiple instances where Mrs. Whitmore had treated students differently based on who they were rather than how they played. Mr. Davis's office was small and cluttered with student artwork and sports trophies. He listened carefully as Amara's parents explained the situation. I appreciate you bringing this to my attention, he said when they finished. I've known Mrs. Whitmore for many years. She's a dedicated teacher who cares deeply about musical excellence. With respect, Mr. Davis, Amara's mom said firmly, excellence shouldn't mean exclusion. My daughter is talented. She's worked incredibly hard to learn a piece she can perform despite her injury. Refusing to even let her audition sends a terrible message. I understand your frustration. However, Mrs. Whitmore has discretion over her curriculum and performance selections. It's not my place to override every decision she makes as a teacher. Amara felt her heart sinking. He wasn't going to help. What about these? Her dad placed the written statements from Sophie, Kennedy, and Tyler on the desk. These students are describing a pattern of behavior, of favoritism and dismissiveness toward certain kids that goes beyond curriculum decisions. Mr. Davis read through the statement slowly. His expression shifted slightly, became more serious. These are concerning allegations. I'll need to investigate them properly. That takes time. The recital is in 6 days, Amara's mom pointed out. I understand the timing is unfortunate. Mr. Davis looked at Amara directly for the first time. I'll tell you what. I can't force Mrs. Whitmore to add you to the program without good cause. But if you're truly ready to perform, if you can demonstrate that you've prepared a piece to recital standards, then I can make a decision based on that. What do you mean? Amara asked. I mean audition for me. Tomorrow after school, come to my office. Bring your piece. If it's as good as you say it is, I'll add you to the recital program myself. Mrs. Whitmore won't have final say if I determine you've met the performance standards. Hope flickered in Amara's chest. Really, you'd do that? I would. But I need to be honest with you, Amara. The standards for this recital are high. I can't add you just because I feel bad about your situation. You'll need to prove you're ready. Can you do that? Amara thought about all those hours of practice, the blisters on her right hand from playing so intensely, the muscle memory she'd built, the music that lived in her heart now. Yes, she said. I can do that, Mr. Davis nodded. Then I'll see you tomorrow at 3:30. I'll have Vice Principal Thompson there as well. She has a music background and can help evaluate your performance. They shook hands and left the office. In the hallway, Amara's mom hugged her tight. I'm so proud of you for standing up for yourself. I haven't done anything yet. I still have to nail that audition. You will, her dad said confidently. We believe in you. That night, Amara practiced until her mom forced her to stop at 10:30. Her right hand ached, but it was a good ache, the kind that came from working hard towards something that mattered. Grandma Rose made her soak her hand in warm water with Epsom salt. You're going to do wonderfully tomorrow, her grandmother said. I can feel it. What if I mess up? What if I get nervous and forget the notes? Then you'll breathe, find your place, and keep going. Music isn't about perfection, baby girl. It's about truth. When you sit down at that piano tomorrow, just tell your truth. Let them hear what's in your heart. At school the next day, word had spread somehow about the audition. Kids Amara barely knew were stopping her in the hallways. Good luck this afternoon. I hope Mr. Davis lets you perform. You've got this. Even some 8th graders she'd never spoken to gave her thumbs up. It felt surreal, like the whole school was suddenly on her side. But not everyone was supportive. During music class, Mrs. Whitmore's jaw was set tight. She'd clearly heard about the audition, too. Class, please take out your theory worksheets, she said coldly. She didn't look at Amara once the entire period. At 3:25, Amara stood outside Mr. Davis's office. Her right hand trembled slightly. Sophie had walked with her from her locker. You're going to be amazing, Sophie said, hugging her. Show them what you can do. Amara knocked on the door. Come in. Mr. Davis and Vice Principal Thompson were waiting. Mrs. Thompson was a kind-looking woman with gray hair and warm eyes. There was a keyboard set up in the corner of the office. "Hello, Amara," Mrs. Thompson said gently. "We're looking forward to hearing you play. Take your time getting settled." Amara sat at the keyboard, adjusted the bench height with her good hand, and positioned her casted arm carefully out of the way. She looked down at the keys, took a deep breath, and thought about everything that had led to this moment. The injury, the dismissal, the secret practices, the support from her friends and family. All of it had been building to right now. Her fingers found the first notes and she began to play. The first notes floated into the air, soft and delicate. Amara's right hand moved across the keyboard with a gentleness that surprised even her. All the nervousness, all the fear, all the anger from the past few weeks melted away. There was only the music now. The Scriabin piece started quietly, almost like a whisper, a simple melody that slowly grew more complex. Her fingers danced between the high and low registers, creating the illusion of two hands playing instead of one. She'd practiced this so many times that her hand knew exactly where to go, exactly how much pressure to apply to each key. She could feel Mr. Davis and Mrs. Thompson watching her, but she didn't look up. Her eyes stayed focused on the keyboard, on the black and white keys that had become her whole world these past few weeks. The music swelled, became more urgent, more emotional. This was the hard part, where the melody jumped octaves while maintaining a running rhythm underneath. Her hand flew across the keys, left to right, high to low, weaving the notes together like thread in a tapestry. She'd stumbled over this section so many times during practice, but right now, in this moment, it flowed perfectly. Every note landed exactly where it should. The piece moved through its various moods: melancholy, hope, defiance, joy. Each emotion poured through her fingers and into the music. This wasn't just about proving she could play with one hand. This was about showing them who she really was. A musician, an artist, someone who refused to let obstacles define her. As the final notes faded away, Amara's hand hovered over the keys for a moment before settling into her lap. The office was completely silent. She finally looked up at Mr. Davis and Mrs. Thompson. Mrs. Thompson's eyes were glassy, like she might cry. Mr. Davis sat perfectly still, his expression unreadable. The silence stretched on for what felt like forever. Finally, Mrs. Thompson spoke. "Amara, that was absolutely beautiful. The technical skill alone is impressive, but the emotion, the interpretation. How long did you say you've been working on this piece?" "About 2.5 weeks. 2.5 weeks? Mrs. Thompson's eyebrows shot up. "You learned that in 2.5 weeks?" "Yes, ma'am. I practiced every day, sometimes for hours." Mr. Davis leaned forward in his chair. "I have to be honest, Amara. When your parents came to me yesterday, I wasn't sure what to expect. I thought maybe you'd learned something simple, something manageable for a student in your situation, but what you just played was concert-level work. Does that mean—" Amara couldn't finish the sentence. Hope and fear battled in her chest. "It means you're performing in the recital." Mr. Davis smiled for the first time since she'd entered the office. "I'll personally add you to the program. You've more than earned your spot." Amara felt tears spring to her eyes, but this time they were happy tears. "Thank you. Thank you so much." "No, thank you," Mrs. Thompson said warmly. "You've reminded me why I became an educator in the first place. Your determination and talent are exactly what we should be celebrating at Riverside. There's something else you should know," Mr. Davis continued, his expression becoming more serious. "Mrs. Thompson and I have been reviewing the statements your friends provided. We've also been looking into some concerns that other parents and students have raised over the years about Mrs. Whitmore's teaching methods." Amara shifted in her seat. "Am I in trouble for saying something?" "Absolutely not. You did the right thing by speaking up. And between you and me, this investigation was probably overdue." Mr. Davis glanced at Mrs. Thompson, who nodded. "We can't discuss the details with you, but I want you to know that we take these matters very seriously. No student should ever feel dismissed or discouraged because of who they are." "What happens now?" Amara asked. "Now you prepare for your performance. The recital is Saturday evening. That gives you 4 days." Mr. Davis pulled out his phone and started typing. "I'm emailing Mrs. Whitmore right now to inform her that you've been added to the program. You'll perform last, which is actually the place of honor in any recital. Mrs. Whitmore's going to be really upset." "That's my problem to manage, not yours," Mr. Davis said firmly. "You focus on your music. Let me handle Mrs. Whitmore. When Amara left the principal's office, Sophie was waiting in the hallway, practically bouncing with nervous energy. "Well, what happened? Don't leave me in suspense." "I'm in the recital." Sophie shrieked and hugged her so hard they both almost fell over. "I knew it. I knew you could do it." Kennedy and Tyler came running from around the corner where they'd apparently been waiting too. "You're performing?" Kennedy asked, her face lighting up. "I'm performing." They all celebrated together right there in the hallway, not caring who saw them. For the first time in weeks, Amara felt like everything might actually be okay. But the celebration was short-lived. The next morning in music class, the atmosphere was ice cold. Mrs. Whitmore stood at the front of the room with her arms crossed, her face completely expressionless. "As some of you may have heard, there's been a last-minute addition to the recital program. Amara will be performing after all." The way she said it made it sound like an inconvenience rather than good news. A few students glanced at Amara uncertainly. "This is highly unusual," Mrs. Whitmore continued. "Program changes at this stage are not standard practice. However, the decision has been made by administration, so we'll accommodate it." Sophie raised her hand. "Mrs. Whitmore, shouldn't we be happy for Amara? She worked really hard to prepare a piece." Mrs. Whitmore's eyes narrowed slightly. "Of course we're happy for all our students. But this recital represents Riverside's commitment to musical excellence. Last-minute additions can compromise that standard. But if someone is excellent, does it matter when they were added?" Tyler spoke up from the back row. The room went dead quiet. Nobody ever challenged Mrs. Whitmore directly. "That's quite enough commentary from the class," Mrs. Whitmore said sharply. "We have work to do. Recital participants, please line up to run through your stage entrances and exits. Amara, since you weren't at the dress rehearsal, you'll need to figure out the logistics on your own." It was a petty move, but Amara didn't care. She was in the recital. That was all that mattered. At lunch, the cafeteria buzzed with gossip. Apparently, the whole school knew about Amara's audition and Mrs. Whitmore's reaction. Some kids thought it was cool that Amara had stood up for herself. Others thought she was causing drama. But most people seemed genuinely excited to hear her perform. "My mom's coming to the recital now specifically to see you play," a 7th grader named Christina told her. "She heard about what happened and wanted to support you." Similar things happened all afternoon. Teachers she barely knew smiled at her in the hallways. The school secretary gave her a thumbs up. Even the janitor, Mr. Peterson, stopped her after school. "My daughter told me your story," he said. "I lost 2 fingers in an accident when I was young. Thought I'd never play guitar again. But I learned to adapt just like you did. You're going to do great, young lady." These small moments of support carried Amara through the next few days. She practiced relentlessly, polishing every phrase, perfecting every transition. Her right hand had never been stronger or more agile. Grandma Rose worked with her on performance techniques. How to walk onto a stage with confidence. How to bow. How to recover gracefully if she made a mistake. "The most important thing is to stay connected to the music," her grandmother reminded her. "Even if you hit a wrong note, don't let it throw you. Just keep going. The audience doesn't have the sheet music. Most of them won't even notice a small mistake if you don't draw attention to it." Friday afternoon, the day before the recital, something unexpected happened. Vice Principal Thompson stopped by Amara's English class and asked if she could speak with her in the hallway. "I wanted to give you a heads up about something," Mrs. Thompson said once they were alone. "Mrs. Whitmore has been placed on administrative leave pending the completion of our investigation. She won't be at the recital tomorrow." Amara's stomach flipped. "Because of me?" "No, honey. Because of her own choices. You didn't do anything wrong. In fact, your courage in speaking up helped us address some serious concerns that had been building for years. Other students and parents have come forward since your family met with us. You started something important. Who's going to run the recital if Mrs. Whitmore's not there?" "I am," Mrs. Thompson smiled. "I used to teach music before I became vice principal. I'm actually looking forward to it. And Amara, I want you to know that you belong on that stage. Not because we feel sorry for you and not because you overcame something. You belong there because you're talented and dedicated. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise." Those words stayed with Amara for the rest of the day. She repeated them to herself that evening while practicing. "I belong here. I'm talented. I'm dedicated." Saturday morning arrived bright and sunny. Amara woke up with butterflies in her stomach. The recital was at 7 that evening. She had the whole day to prepare, which somehow felt both like too much time and not enough. Her mom made her favorite breakfast, pancakes with strawberries. Her dad kept cracking jokes to keep the mood light. Grandma Rose sat quietly, sipping her coffee and smiling knowingly. "How are you feeling, baby girl?" she asked, scared, excited, nervous, all of it. "That's exactly how you should feel before a big performance. It means you care. Just remember you've already won. You fought for your right to be there and you got it. Everything that happens tonight is just icing on the cake." At 6 o'clock, Amara and her family arrived at the school auditorium. The parking lot was already filling up. Parents and students streamed toward the entrance, dressed in their nice clothes, carrying flowers and cameras. Backstage was chaos. Students in formal wear rushed around, warming up instruments, practicing difficult passages, checking their sheet music one last time. Mrs. Thompson moved through the crowd calmly, offering encouragement and keeping everyone organized. When she saw Amara, she smiled and waved her over. "Ready?" Amara nodded, even though her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. "You're performing last. I know that might seem nerve-wracking, but it's actually an honor. The final performance is what the audience remembers most. No pressure, though." Mrs. Thompson winked. "Thanks. I think you're going to be wonderful. I can feel it." The auditorium lights dimmed. The audience settled into their seats. Through a gap in the curtain, Amara could see the crowd. Hundreds of people, her parents and grandmother in the third row, Sophie, Kennedy, and Tyler scattered throughout with their families. Christina and her mom, Mr. Peterson the janitor. So many faces, some she knew and some she didn't. The recital began. One by one, students walked onto the stage and performed. A violin solo that soared through the auditorium. A cello duet that made people close their eyes and sway. Tyler's guitar piece brought smiles to faces. Kennedy's flute solo was crisp and clear, hitting every note perfectly. Amara watched from the wings, her stomach doing flips. Each performance was good, really good. These were talented kids who'd been preparing for months with 2 working hands and their teachers' full support. What if she wasn't as good as them? What if all her practice wasn't enough? "Stop it," Sophie whispered beside her. She'd finished her clarinet solo 20 minutes ago and had come backstage to wait with Amara. "I can see you overthinking." "You're amazing. Everyone's going to see that. What if I mess up? Then you'll keep playing." "Nobody's perfect, Amara. They're not expecting perfect. They're expecting you. And you are more than enough." The performances continued. A string quartet, a percussion ensemble, a piano duet that reminded Amara painfully of what she used to be able to do with both hands. But then she remembered Grandma Rose's words. "This isn't about what you lost. It's about what you found finally after what felt like hours." Mrs. Thompson walked onto the stage to introduce the final performance. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special closing performance tonight. Our final pianist has shown remarkable dedication and perseverance over the past few weeks. When faced with an obstacle that would have stopped many students, she found another way forward. Please welcome Amara Johnson, performing Scriabin's 2 pieces for the right hand." The applause started before Amara even appeared. She took a deep breath, smoothed down her dark blue dress with her good hand, and walked onto the stage. The lights were blinding at first. She couldn't see individual faces in the crowd, just a sea of darkness beyond the stage lights. Her legs felt shaky as she walked to the grand piano sitting center stage. This piano was much nicer than the one she'd been practicing on. Bigger, more responsive. She sat on the bench and adjusted it slightly. Her cast-covered left arm rested awkwardly at her side. For a moment she felt exposed, like everyone was staring at her injury, rather than seeing her as a musician. But then she placed her right hand on the keys and everything else faded away. The opening notes came naturally, like breathing. Soft and gentle, they filled the silent auditorium. Her hand moved with confidence she didn't even know she had. All those hours of practice, all those nights of frustration and doubt had prepared her for this exact moment. The melody unfolded like a story. It started quietly, almost hesitantly, like someone taking their first steps after being afraid. Then it grew stronger, more certain. Her fingers danced across the keys, finding every note exactly where it should be. The difficult passages that had given her so much trouble during practice now flowed smoothly. She could feel the audience leaning in, listening. The auditorium was completely silent except for her music. No coughs, no shuffling, no whispers. Just pure attention. The piece moved into its more emotional section. This was where Amara let everything pour out. The sadness of being dismissed. The frustration of being told she wasn't good enough. The joy of proving everyone wrong. The gratitude for people who believed in her. All of it channeled through her right hand and into the music. Her fingers flew across the keys in the rapid-fire section. High notes sparkled like stars. Low notes rumbled like thunder. The piano sang under her touch, and Amara felt more alive than she'd ever felt before. This was why she loved music. This feeling of being completely present, completely yourself, completely free. As the piece built toward its conclusion, Amara realized she wasn't nervous anymore. She wasn't thinking about Mrs. Whitmore or proving anything to anyone. She was just playing. Just sharing something beautiful with people who wanted to hear it. The final notes rang out clear and strong. Amara held her hand over the keys for a moment, letting the last sounds fade into silence. Then she lowered her hand and looked up. For one heartbeat, the auditorium remained completely still. Then it exploded. People jumped to their feet. The applause was deafening, thunderous, overwhelming. Amara sat frozen on the bench, shocked by the intensity of the response. She saw her parents standing, clapping so hard their hands must have hurt. Grandma Rose had tears streaming down her face. Sophie was cheering and jumping. Kennedy and Tyler were whistling. Even the school board members in the front row were on their feet. Mrs. Thompson appeared on stage, her own eyes glistening. She helped Amara stand and whispered, "Take your bow, sweetheart. You've earned this." Amara bowed and the applause grew even louder. Some people were actually crying. A woman in the fourth row held a sign that said, "We believe in you, Amara." How long had she been holding that? Had she brought it specifically for this? As Amara walked off stage, students she barely knew high-fived her. Parents stopped her to shake her hand. A reporter from the local newspaper asked if she'd be willing to do an interview. Everything felt surreal, like a dream she might wake up from any second. Backstage, her family found her. Her mom hugged her so tight she could barely breathe. Her dad kept saying, "That's my girl," over and over. Grandma Rose just held her face in both hands and smiled. "You did it, baby girl. You really did it. I was so scared, I know. But you were also brave. And that's what matters." The lobby after the recital was packed with people. Amara found herself surrounded by students, parents, teachers, even strangers who had heard her story and wanted to meet her. A woman introduced herself as a piano teacher from across town. "I have a student with cerebral palsy who's been struggling with modified techniques," she said. "Would you mind if I told her about you? I think your story could really inspire her." "Of course," Amara said, feeling overwhelmed by the idea that her experience might help someone else. Principal Davis appeared through the crowd. "Amara, wonderful performance. Truly exceptional. I wanted you to know that the school board was here tonight. They were very impressed. There's talk of starting a program for students with different abilities or challenges to make sure everyone has access to music education. Your courage tonight helped make that conversation possible." Before Amara could respond, a girl around her age approached shyly. She had a prosthetic leg visible below her dress. "Hi," the girl said quietly. "I'm Zara. I'm in 6th grade. I wanted to tell you that watching you play tonight made me feel like maybe I could try out for the soccer team next year. Everyone says I can't because of my leg, but you showed that people are wrong sometimes." Amara felt her throat tighten with emotion. "They're definitely wrong. You should totally try out, and if anyone tells you that you can't, prove them wrong." Zara grinned and hugged her before disappearing back into the crowd. Sophie found Amara near the exit. "Can you believe this? You're like a celebrity now." "It's weird. I just wanted to play piano." "Yeah, but you did more than that. You changed things. Mrs. Whitmore's gone. The school's talking about new programs. Kids like Zara feel inspired. That's huge, Amara." Later that night, after all the excitement had died down and her family was home, Amara sat at their old upright piano. Her cast would come off in 3 more weeks. Then she'd get to play with both hands again. But something had shifted inside her. She wasn't the same person who'd broken her wrist at basketball practice. That Amara had loved piano but had never really been tested, had never faced real opposition, had never had to fight for something she cared about. This Amara was stronger, more sure of herself. She'd learned that obstacles weren't endings, just detours. That being told no didn't mean giving up. That standing up for yourself mattered even when it was scary. Grandma Rose sat down in the armchair nearby. "How are you feeling?" "Tired, happy, a little bit like I'm still dreaming." "You know what the best part is?